In 2017, Richard Allen was interviewed and his phone was looked at. The probable cause affidavit, the one that we can get a hold of, said that at the time it lacked an IMEI, and then people go off on a tangent on the internet. It had an MEID, which can be thought of as equivalent. Now, I'm going to say a few things here that you're just going to have to trust me, and I'm not going to provide a link, because depending on where you look it up, there's a very strong motivation for certain groups of people, corporations and governments, to tell you it's against the law to modify this. Don't you dare do it. Don't copy that floppy. Here we go. The mobile equipment identifier, which is what it had, MEID, is a 56-bit, 14 hexadecimal digit long number. It can use numbers and letters, A through E, F, that sort of thing, and 0 through 9. And that gives you like 70 quadrillion combinations, or 70 or 56 bits of entropy. This is like a hex version of the IMEI number. The IMEI number uses 0 through 9 only, or it's supposed to. And it's 15 digits long, so it's a 1 followed by 15 zeros, essentially. And it has like 10 quadrillion combinations. But because of overhead and maybe checksums, maybe they're about the same. The point is, the International Mobile Equipment Identifier Code can be pseudo-derived from the other number, and vice versa, supposedly. They're both used for many purposes I'm going to bring up, but what you're going to hear is, from lawmakers and paranoiacs, it means something. This isn't my first freaking rodeo. I used to work originally as a care representative. That's the word, care rep. Look that up. And then in the security department, and everybody probably figured out where I went from there. I went to the perp department, we called it, which had a real reason for its name and didn't sound like perpetrator, but it was. My job was to track people stealing cell phones, hacking accounts, absconding with shit tons of money, committing international crimes, and tracking people, in some cases, literally. And also helping people, in some cases, not become more lost in the desert or in the mountain range they were in. And I worked at the company, or one of the companies, that enabled, whether you liked it or not, the ability to be tracked by GPS, because the information was handed over to the Drug Enforcement Administration, or whatever they call it, DEA. Because that literally fucking happened. Now, I can't prove any of this, because by definition, the job would have made this impossible. But I do know what the fuck I'm talking about. And I'm also talking about things that aren't done at all anymore, which are the basis for this. Or at least they were supposed to be. Please also understand that these very large hexadecimal or numerical digits with literally quadrillion combinations are used in almost any piece of electronics that needs to, or is allowed to get away with, identifying you or itself uniquely. These are assigned to the phone, flashed to the phone, put on the phone on a sticker, or burned into the phone permanently. It's called the handset number as well. The other one is the Subscriber Identification Module, SIM. That is ostensibly only for whatever you pay for. Anything you don't have to pay for only relies on the phone itself existing, being able to connect, and if it's a freebie, it may or may not require this 1 in a quadrillion combination number on it. It doesn't, by the way. Next. Having these numbers not work or get blanked doesn't stop the phone itself from working. I've had one that would work only as a Wi-Fi device, or can play games or whatever. And you can plug it into a computer and cable data in. You can do virtually everything you want to, except, depending on the mobile network or not a mobile network, that'll be in a minute, you won't be able to dial phones or type certain codes. But that's only on most networks, for a reason of what this was used for originally and then what it was co-opted for by them. Mostly it's because the telephone networks, and especially newer ones, won't bother identifying the phone because it looks like it's just some radio transceiver that's spitting out data but isn't giving a data frame. The data frame can include all sorts of things like your GPS. All sorts of data can be stuffed in it. The data framing preamble structure, or whatever you want to call it, can include IMEI or the MEID and the SIM number and that sort of thing, or something derived from it. Hint, hint. If you jailbreak your phone because you're tired of Apple updating it or deciding they're just going to shut it off because they want you to pay up another $300, or you want to root it to be able to install software because you don't want them to decide whether or not you can load up Firefox, or if you get a bad update because Apple did that all the time and so did every other cell phone company a lot, or you had a clean reload of it at the shop, all of these can blank or alter that number and usually do. And the phone just works fine. As long as the SIM card works and the subscriber identification module data, it can also just be burned into the phone, by the way. Don't know if you knew that. As long as that data is there, everything you pay for will work fine, and the phone will be forced to work. This means you can yank out a SIM card if your phone uses it and just shove it into literally any phone it'll allow it to work in, and it works. Jailbroken phones that are international usage that have to have no geofencing, they just work everywhere, which is what you want to buy. Go get one. By default, don't even pay attention to the IMEI number except for setting up initial handshake to the network and or initial handshake after a long downtime to the first cell phone antenna it can run into. Not the best or the worst or the closest. Then from there, it will then negotiate power intensity so it can use the least amount of power to communicate. In low power mode, ironically, it gives you better bandwidth because it presumes you're in an area with towers that are closer together. 5G uses this extremely to make it to where you're using the lowest intensity at the least amount of energy output, but you have to change a lot more during the minute or two that you're walking around. If you're in a car, it'll want to use longer ranges so it doesn't change as often. Or it might go to full holy shit power because you're on a mountaintop dialing 911. And now we get to the point why these numbers are not required. In order for every country to allow cell phones to work, they had to make a deal that they would have an emergency mode, aka the exploitable mode that's used by a bunch of hackers or the 14-year-old kid up the street who keeps playing Mario Brothers on his cell phone without ever paying a bill. You want to make friends with that kid. He knows what he's doing. He's the hacker. Trust me, it's the kids. Games will motivate people. What they do is, when it's in what we're going to call emergency phone mode or freebie mode, anything that doesn't require you pay for is turned on full blast. Longest range, largest battery usage unless it has to, and it will work with 911 or the equivalent in your country. It's supposed to, required to. And again, if you buy an international capable phone, it will turn all of these on full blast. And you'll have a secret menu, the flags register is what it's called. Some of you just type that in or remember doing that when you were a kid so you can get your shit working. The flags register lets you manually type in an IMEI number and a SIM code for test purposes. It's for test benching it at the factory or at the shop. And you can tell it blank that number so it doesn't have one. On some of them, the older ones, kids would get into them and call me up and I'd say, "What's your IMEI number and SIM number?" And then I'd see the notes when they brought up the phone number or any number. Just tell me what it's written on it. Okay, but if I look it up, you're going to get mad at me. It's okay. And I'd look it up. Kid blanked his phone. Kid rooted it. The phone's defective. Kid keeps playing with it for video games. We can't give him anything, but ... He has walkie-talkie mode, meaning he can communicate with his friends using short-range ID code only. He's hacking his phone. And they get a person on the phone. "Sir, yes. My son keeps playing with the flags register." And I tell them, "Yes, ma'am, he's a hacker. Shoot him." No. I tell them, "Your kid has learned to hack." Now, there's nothing wrong with that. But in the process of doing this, he's made it to where it won't do certain features. It's a trade-off. Are you on speakerphone? Because they're always on speakerphone, and God, I hate it. Yes. It's not against the law for him to do it, even though it says it is. It isn't. You know that rip the tag off of your mattress thing? Yeah, this is the equivalent. Yes, I know. You live in a country. You're going to type it immediately. It's going to be Britain, where they make you pay a tax for watching TV. Good God, Britain, what the fuck happened to you? You used to kick the shit out of Nazis. Anyway, let's move on. No, it's not going to throw you in prison. Well, there's jail time. No, there fucking isn't. Because it's a broken phone. All you have to do is say, yeah, I was trying to jailbreak the phone or root it to put a program on it so I could play a game. It broke it. If they actually decide to throw you in jail, you'll get a shit ton of money out of them or get an apology, a very nice one. You're not supposed to go to jail for accidentally breaking your phone and it losing a serial number. That's like complaining about, oh, well, my gun doesn't have a serial number on it. I go to jail. No, it was made that way. I made the gun that way. It doesn't have a serial number because it's a homemade gun. That's blasphemy. No, it's not illegal. Because someone's going to make that assumption too. Unique identifier codes are only used where they're required to be. For using the phone on a network to be able to go, it says international, to go between internationally enabled networks. Now, I just said something here. If you're not using the phone for anything more than a local call, technically it's not required to have a unique identifier because it can just use the local network, the local exchange. Just like you don't have to state the area code in the past when you were getting the operator to work with it. Oh, Klondike 555. Yeah, but what's the area code? I'm not doing international dialing. Just dial it. That's the way it is. Now, someone's going to say, you're totally wrong about that. What was this code used originally for? It's obviously uniquely identifiable and can be used to track you. On paper, in the original draft, in the original thing everybody voted on and then immediately changed it, along with the 911 enabling, the ID code was used to negotiate with the tower a unique ID code temporarily and not use it very often, so it could make a one-time usage per session ID code, a soft IMEI, or a soft serial number, or a soft encryption number, to encrypt your phone call. Yeah, this was originally so that you could make it to where the government couldn't spy on you, that nobody could break into your phone, because that's obvious. It's a cell phone. After everybody figured out cell phones could be tagged by just getting a radio transceiver that was tuned right, or a detuned FM radio in some cases, they decided this needed to be made to where it would auto-scramble the audio. Now, I want to ask all of you, so how's that going for you? If the ID code doesn't change, it can be discovered easier. This was a break-in capability for the U.S. government to be able to tap your phone. But if it got a soft number, which some cell phone networks still do, they can't get in because it's a one-time pad. Look up one-time pad. I'll leave a link. But the point is, you have a 56-bit number with another 56-bit number hashed together to make a brand new one that's labeled soft rather than hardware-based. You're uncrackable. I mean, seriously, that's extreme encryption. That's not as good as 128-bit PGP, but for a phone message, it's great. Most of you don't have that level of encryption when you PK zip something. And that got in the way of despots everywhere, and that became not the standard. It's in the original draft. It's in the original file. It's even been bandied about in what were closed sessions in Congress, and then it was decided, no, it should just use the hardware ID number because of recommendations from the international security community. The CIA wanted to be able to track you. So anyway, let me get to the point here. Richard Allen's phone did not have anything unusual about it at all. It just dispensed with using the IMEI number, just use this other number instead, number one. Number two, if he had an IMEI number, it would have been derivational, meaning it would have been generated by it. Next, he probably just rooted his phone so he could load up some program. He might have been using a stock ticker that was not authorized by Apple or whatever company, don't matter. And the most common reason this was done is to keep the company from shutting off your phone after a while. And yeah, kids used it so they could play Mario Brothers or whatever. And yeah, I dealt with this a lot, but the SIM card just made it work. And it also happened if you used a phone that was hacked or homebrewed. Anyway, to fix it, you take it back to the store, and half the time, they ended up blanking it anyway. Then it would update itself over the network when it used the SIM card to figure out what it should be. That's how phones got cloned by accident. Last thing, someone asked me to review Eye of Apophis, a YouTube channel. I don't find them to be useful or credible. They seem to be going off on tangents that aren't on topic, and more importantly, I don't really think I want to watch the channel in general. That's an opinion. On an absolute basis, I don't believe that they're fact-based. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. That's the end of the